21% of indigenous people are in green, 19.4 non-indigenous are in green. So there's a huge difference. We can do that for ages. We have the national one, children, adults, and elderly. Among all those ages, children are suffering more, according to this method, for poverty. Only 13.3% in the green one, whereas elderly 17.2. So we can do all this subgroup analysis. Of course, the law is mandating us to measure poverty by states. So we have, for instance, Chiapas there. 76.7% of people in poverty, only 5.5 people in the green area. Chiapas still the worst in terms of percentage of poverty, not in terms of number of poor people, because there are states with more population, but in terms of percentage, Chiapas is still there. And of course, what we produce as well, every time we release the data, is social deprivations by dimension. Because as you understand, sometimes when you put in a single number, it may hide something what is within there. So we are putting every single deprivation. As you'll see, access to social security is the worst part of those rights, 65% in the year 2008. Then access to health services, 40, educational gap, 21, access to food, 21.6, access to basic services and quality of living spaces, 17.5. So we produce those figures for the country and for every single state and municipality when we'll have them with the next census. Well, we thought that it was interesting not only to talk about poverty, it came very, very easily to talk about poverty this way, but we want to have another way of cutting poverty. So we produce a more severe poverty line, the usual, the value of the food basket. And also we thought it was important to identify those poor people who have many deprivations, and therefore we produce this extreme poverty and moderate. If you add up all this, is the orange area. So this is important for two reasons. First of all, still for targeting, and it is very useful recently for targeting many states. Say, I want to know who are the worst families or people within my state in terms of income and in terms of social deprivations, those who have many deprivations, and therefore I want to go there and have a public policy which is more coherent with what I have. And secondly, we wanted to monitor this because we didn't want the Mexican state to reduce poverty on the easy way. Let's say we had, if there's a guy here with only one deprivation, or a guy here with a very relatively high income, we didn't want them to go only there to reduce poverty, which is the easiest way to reducing poverty. We can do that, and we can reduce poverty, which is fair, but we also wanted to monitor that the Mexican state is going also to these places where sometimes it's more expensive to get there in terms of geographic places or in terms of course. Anyway, so we included that dimension, that group as well, and of course, again, the public policy idea is going from these places to these places again. And then we have the same figures, the same types of goals, including extreme poverty. I'm going to skip this. And we have Chiapas as well, with 35% of extreme poverty and 70-something% for total poverty, unlike Mexico, which got 10.5 in extreme poverty. 10.5 against 35.4 makes Chiapas a very poor country. What we were interested in, and the law is actually asking for that, is how can we link the measurement of poverty to public policy? So we are, when we go to this, the visit of the 7 houses, as we said in Mexico, la visita de las 7 casas, as is in the Bible, we go to all these ministries and we produce this type of this presentation, saying that if we want to reduce poverty, or if we want to put more people here in the green spot, we need at least two types of policies. The economic ones, and those economic ones, employment, economic growth, what you'll be doing is moving people up, in reducing poverty in the dimension of income. And we're also doing that because we took so much time in putting all these dots there, so we want to show them how they move. But the bottom line is, and it's important for the Mexican government, I think that recently the Mexican government has been thinking only about social programs in order to reduce poverty, and they are forgetting about a very important tool, which is economic growth or employment or income. And therefore, we have to remind ourselves that economic policies are important in this way. But of course, social policies, removing the health, education, access to health, access to education, education gap, access to housing, access to social security is important, and we move that with those type of policies to that FARCO. And of course, it is also important for Mexico, at least, that this type of analysis can show that we have to combine as well two types of policies. We have to still have targeting policies, targeting to poor and extreme poor people here, but let's not forget about universal policies, which are also very important, because we are talking about social rights which are universal. So again, our feeling is that recently in Mexico, the focus has been mostly on targeted programs. They are good. Some of them are good. Some of them are not good. Oportunidades is a good example, but Oportunidades is a good example of a good targeting program which wants to fulfill social rights for poor people, because we already have a universal strategy for access to education in general. So what is Oportunidades doing is helping that strategy to have all people, all children with access to education. So let's not forget, at least in Mexico, that those policies should be combined to reduce poverty, and the green part here, the white bits here as well. So, and we can also have, as we are doing right now, we can have this type of simulations with the data. So, well, what would happen to the Mexican figures if suddenly, if magically, we'll have universal access to health and social security? What will happen if that happens? And this is not just an academic idea. Some people are arguing about going to that direction. Santiago Levy, for instance. So what would happen if we magically can have that, irrespective of funds? But we'll have, instead of this Mexico, the one on the left, we have this Mexico, which is in here. More people within this green area, more people and less people in the poverty areas, and that's because of a universal policy in health and social security, irrespective to others. So this type of analysis we can do with this method using, of course, the data from 2008. We can do that with some other programs or with some other strategies. We are doing that, for instance, with Oportunidades. You can do that very easily because Oportunidades is captured in the survey, so we can do that. What would happen to poverty if suddenly the cash transfer for Oportunidades is increasing double? Well, we can simulate that, and we can see what would happen in terms of poverty or the rest of the other aspects which they're being coming up since December. Other ministries, besides the Ministry of Social Development, understand better their role in reducing poverty in Mexico. The amazing thing in Mexico is that the only ministry who's got an objective of reducing poverty is the Ministry of Social Development, which is amazing. No? So it doesn't matter if employment is going down, it doesn't matter if productivity is going down. That affects poverty a great deal. Therefore, we have to understand that the objective of poverty is mostly in all ministries in Mexico, access to health, access to housing, and all that. Of course, the Ministry of Finance is there very importantly. We are starting to evaluate social programs, ex post and ex ante, using this approach. And it's interesting because when we tried in the past to evaluate programs in terms of poverty, in terms of income poverty, we did have a problem because many social programs do not affect income directly. No, we have a very important program in Mexico, urban program called Habitat, and they deliver electricity and dwellings and many others, and they always wanted to measure how they impact poverty in the income space. Well, they don't. No? Therefore, however, in this space, it's easier if because they can impact more directly. Social programs are changing the way they identify their beneficiaries. They actually do have 2 years time to adapt their way of identifying beneficiaries according to this method. For instance, there's a strategy called Strategy for Pure Municipalities, Estrategia 100%, for instance, it's called, and they are using this method to target their programs. By linking social deprivations with poverty, policy recommendations are strengthened. It is easier for ministries to understand that they can impact poverty from their fields. It is now possible to evaluate the effect of social policy not only on income poverty but also on specific deprivations, as I said before. There was a tendency in the year 2009 to focus on cash transfers when poverty is measured only with income. When poverty was up last year, according to CONEVAL, what happened is that the policy the government thought was to increase the cash transfer amount for Oportunidades people. It made sense. If poverty is increasing by income, let's increase cash transfers. However, the main objective of Oportunidades, it is not to reduce poverty through cash transfers. The main objective was to reduce poverty in the longer run while having more children with more education and with better nutrition. And our feeling is that if we only see at income, you may even distort some good programs because you want them to reduce poverty immediately. And the worst part is, hope I don't have journalists here, maybe poverty will increase in the year 2010. And the government made a huge effort and negotiations with other parties to increase Oportunidades. And poverty will go up because it's not enough, the increase in Oportunidades, to compensate the huge problem we had in the labor market. There is no compensation on that. Therefore, I guess it's going to be a political debate. Why did I give you so much money for Oportunidades if poverty was up anyway? So, red light there. Since income poverty is influenced by a number of circumstances that social policy cannot control, sometimes the country cannot control, relevant social achievements may remain undetected. For instance, I'm going to show you this example, if I can find. We have released recently a short time way of measuring some aspects of poverty. What we did, we used an employment survey, which is every 3 months, every quarter. They measure labor income. So what we did is the usual income poverty only using labor income we can use, and the question is, can you buy the food basket with that income? And we measure the percentage of people who can buy that. So what happens is what we call labor poverty trend index. What happens is that between 2008 and 10, there was an increase in the percentage of people who couldn't buy the cost of the food basket with their labor income. what if and labor income is approximately 70% of total income of Mexicans in